Hello and welcome to a special edition of Brick Clips. Boy, do we have a story for you tonight. So many men and women have given their lives to the brick industry. So many of them have so many wonderful stories to tell that many times go unnoticed. We've started what we call the Brickman's Hall of Fame, where we pick 4 to 5 people every year from all parts and fields of the industry, whether it's manufacturing or sales or distributor ownership, that we will induct yearly into the Brickman's Hall of Fame to tell their story, share their thoughts and loves and things that they see that it might be changes or interesting that we hope that you will find also interesting. We hope you enjoy.
I did a little bit of everything starting out. I jigged brick, I hacked brick, worked all over the plant. I went through Texas A&M through the School of Architecture and Construction.
The first time I sold a million brick, when I actually wrote an order that had 1 million brick on it.
Oh wow!
That was a real high.
Their type of mining was totally different than Belden. Belden's was pretty unique because the raw material come out of the same vein. Shale, red burning shale, and buff burning fire clay come out of the same pit. So,
tunnel kills a lot more efficient. Your handling was different because periodic kills is all hand fed in there. You hand load them and stuff, and very labor intensive to do that. Versus now you've got your big dinosaurs loading your cars and stuff, and the human hand doesn't hardly touch them.
Thank you for watching our Brickman's Hall of Fame version of Brick Clips. You have now watched 3 inductees into the Brickman's Hall of Fame. And now we're going to go on to the 4th story of Ron Lehman. We're going to Cincinnati, Ohio. Let's watch. Well, hello. We got a special treat for you today with Ron Lehman, Cincinnati, Ohio. How about that, huh? We just want to thank you for all the times you've been enjoying time with us at Brick Clips. And we hope we have another exciting episode to come to you, talk about the past and talk about the future of the brick industry as we see it, and share some real thoughts and some interesting stories of what Ron has come through and as his time in the brick business. And Ron, I want to thank you for coming and being with us today.
My pleasure to be here. It's been a long journey for me, but enjoy every bit of it. And,
how many years have you been in the industry now?
A little over 50 years.
50 years.
Yep.
And where did you start at?
Iron Clay Brick Company in Columbus, which are a family company. Before my time there, we had been in the manufacturing business. We had a brick plant at Shawnee, Ohio, and Perry County that made the old iron spot brick with the real heavy iron specs in it. And we also owned a plant at Hanover, Ohio that is now Bowerston's Hanover plant. At the time we owned it, it still had the beehive periodic kills, and later Bowerston put in tunnel kill operation at that plant. So,
now, what was your primary responsibility when you started? What did you do?
Started out in residential sales. Spent about 2 years of that. Didn't like working the residential market, so I got into architectural sales at that time. Worked my way up through the company until vice president and so on, until 1973 when we closed the company down, and then I took a brief stint with Hamilton Parker Company for about 6 months, and had the opportunity then to go to Cincinnati Builder Supply Company in Cincinnati in 1974. So.
Now, actually, when you say 51 years, you've actually had some experience prior to that, though. You were working summer help in schools and stuff like that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I spent my time in our supply yard unloading rail cars of brick. And at that time, you tonged them off and carried them out by tongs, and didn't have the packaged brick at that point, and also
or the forklifts, right?
No forklifts, no boom trucks, any of that type of thing, and also unloading cars of bagged mortar and stuff, and you wheeled that on a 2-wheel cart, no forklifts and pallets of that type material. So it was pretty much a hand operation back in those days. Yeah.
When I first went to Rose Brick Materials, they used to unload the old rail cars that way years ago too, and we actually had a dolly. We were going to move some furniture. This guy brought a dolly in, and it had the 2 spikes on it.
Yeah.
And we're thinking, what the world is that? And that's what they actually used to take a strap at a time of the brick, right?
Right.
They tong into that, and
yeah, when they started strapping and stuff, and the brick packaging kind of evolved from starting out with pallets, and then you had West masonry contractors up in Chicago that didn't like that wide pallet because they couldn't get through doorways in the buildings, so they came up with their West system pallets, which was like a double pallet that you could spread apart, and in the narrow width you could wheel that through doorways in the buildings and stuff to move the material. So and then from that the self-contained packages evolved.
how did the brick travel then in the rail cars? I know today we get a lot of breakage,
Yeah.
a lot of breakage. I know it's the way they make brick, but how was it back then?
Well, the brick were loaded in loose, and they put straw between the layers to cushion the brick.
More solid brick back then too?
Not too many. Solids were used to some extent, but it was more cord brick
Okay.
because cording came as a weight reduction.
To help with shipping, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but the straw between the layers tend to cushion the brick, and then you tonged them. You gotta get 2 tongs of brick at a time and haul them out, and then you'd stack them in a shed, and then you tong them back on a truck. Truck driver haul them to the job and tong them back off. And the same way with your hod carriers, they would tong the brick, stock their scaffolds and so on, and it was all handwork. So.
How long did it take to unload a rail car? One guy, 2 guys, more?
You usually have 3 or 4 guys take them out of there, and you get a car off in about a day. So
You have 4 or 5 rail cars.
Yeah.
Well, then you got a week's worth of work.
And then when we were hauling brick from the plants on a semi, the guy would haul about 8,000 brick, and it would take him about 2 hours to unload a truck by hand. If the guy was really getting
Motivated,
with it,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, motivated. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now take us to Cincinnati Builders. You started at Cincinnati Builders. What happened there?
Started there in 1974. George McDonald hired me on, and went into architectural sales, and later became vice president of the company. And as the company evolved and ownerships changed, I became president of the company. Not much ownership in it, but
Nice.
was president of the company up till the time that the business was sold out to Reading Rock in Cincinnati. And then after a short term there, then I moved on to the Dapper Company for 11.5 years.
And all architectural sales with Dapper?
Yes, once I did my first 2 years in the business and residential, that was the end of my residential stint. I really preferred to dealing with the architects and felt a little more challenging.
Yeah.
You have to be a little more technically inclined when you're dealing with an architect than you do a home builder, and that was kind of my niche.
At Rose Brick, I was president of Rose, but I'm mostly focused on architectural sales.
Yeah.
And every now and then dabbled in the residential, and I like to get into a little bit just as a change of pace, but it was different than selling architecture commercially. So
yeah, it's
the
a
path we're on.
whole different event when you're dealing with a home builder. I like the challenges of dealing with the architects, trying to get in their mind and figuring out what they were wanting in a building, and being able to go in and satisfy those needs.
And building that relationship of trust early on.
Yep.
Because that's what you have to have with an architect.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Before, so.
And you got to have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Know what you're talking about. The technical aspects of it.
No, that is some neat stuff. Okay, and then so after Dapper, you decided for another major challenge in your life. Tell us about that.
Yes, at my elderly state in life, I, along with two other dapper employees, Alan Tomes and Heath Coleman, we decided to go out on our own and start our own company, and it's primarily in the architectural field. We started off with no brick lines, no relationships with any companies, but in a year and a half we now have 9 brick companies we represent, 6 natural stone companies, 2 cultured stone
Very
companies,
nice.
and we represent 3 of the cement manufacturers for mortar and so on. And we have come quite a long way in a year and a half.
So tell us who the brick manufacturers are right now you have.
We have Taylor Clay Products.
They're out of South Carolina? Where's
No,
Taylor?
no.
Where's Taylor out of?
Salisbury, North Carolina.
They're out of North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah. And we have Lee Brick out of North Carolina, Statesville Brick,
Okay.
North Carolina. We represent Bowerston Shale out of Ohio.
They're great for a lot of match work too.
Yes, they
especially
are.
in this area.
Yeah. We have Colonial Brick out of Indiana that still have the old coal-fired kilns.
And the clinker look and some of the stuff. Yeah, that's amazing stuff.
They're great for matching some of the old buildings and stuff.
I'd like to tour that and do a brick clips of that place one of these days. That's one of my future lists if they'll allow us.
That is a step back in time. Believe
Yeah,
me.
that'll be fun. Remember the Caledonia-Iberia difference?
Yeah.
With Glengarry?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun to go there.
Yep. But we've got Hebron Brick out of North Dakota,
Yep.
and Watsontown Brick out of Pennsylvania.
And yes, that's a nice little plant.
Yes,
That's expanding too. They
Yeah.
another kiln and everything in that plant, right?
right. They have come a long way, and they just in the past month opened up a new plant where they make sandal brick.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they've expanded quite a bit. They've got their 2 rigger extruded kilns and plant, and then they've, like I say, just opened this new.
Who do you deal with at Watsontown?
Jim Michaels.
Jim Michaels. Okay.
Yeah.
Brian Cleary would be one of my favorite people.
Okay.
Have you met with him or dealt with him? I think he's the sales manager. Or he's over.
No, I don't know him, but
Okay.
so we've come quite a ways with. We represent Indiana Limestone Company and U.S. Stone out of Kansas. We've got Halquist Stone out of Wisconsin, Valder Stone out of Wisconsin.
Now is that full stone or do they do thin stone too? Do they thin cut?
These plants, Indiana does not do the thin cut stone, but the others do.
Okay.
And so we've got that. There's another stone company called Touch of Class out of Pennsylvania that we represent.
Do they do thin stone too?
Yes, they do thin
What
stone.
does that normally go for a square foot?
Um,
Non-installed.
it
but what
varies.
is the sale price?
Our most reasonable thin stone is Cooper Stone out of Texas, and that goes in the range of about $5 a square foot up to about, and some of the other stones will go to $10, $12.
It will go as high as that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, if you're in the $5 range, you're very competitive for I call the licking stick.
Exactly.
Cultured stone or
Exactly
manufactured
right.
stone stuff.
Yeah. We represent Landmark Stone on the cultured stone and Boulder Creek out of Minnesota.
So if you're buying stone, what advantage do you have buying a manufactured thin stone versus a real thin stone?
It's usually a cost factor on that. It's a little lighter weight than even your thin natural stone. But
Yeah, it would be just a little bit lighter. Yep.
right. But the natural stone, with your cultured stone, you've got repeat pattern in the stones, where with your true natural stone, there's no 2 pieces are going to be alike.
That is true.
So,
And then color too. You get into some color where I mean, the real stuff looks so real, but the culture or manufacturer doesn't always do that. But
Right.
but you also have, so you might have some fading issues depending on what manufacturer
Right.
you buy from,
Yeah, your quality always comes into play there. So,
or long term. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's give a plug now to your company that you have now. Why don't you tell us the name of your company and where you guys are located at?
it's Iron Clay Masonry Products. My two partners like the Iron Clay name just because it had a catchy sound.
And that's your
to it.
history. That's your past
It's
too.
in my history, yes. And we're located in Fairfield, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cincinnati on the northwest side of town. And we run a small operation. We pretty much direct ship a lot of our brick and stuff. We do inventory a little bit of material, but we primarily focus on direct shipments, and kind of helps keep our costs down, keeps us competitive. And we offer a lot of good products to the market and a lot of expertise.
No, that is very nice.
Because between us, we probably represent close to 80 years in the masonry business.
Wow.
So for a new company, we're an old company.
No, absolutely. Bring a
Yeah.
lot to the table.
Yeah.
Well, I like the name too. That has a lot of historic value too,
Yeah.
and I did not know that. You got a website, so if anyone wants to
Yeah.
look at the website,
Yes, sir. It's ironclaymasonry.com.
.com.
And but we've come along quite well in a year and a half, I think, and looking forward to some very good years. And
Yeah, and even you come into the new business in kind of a downtime in the marketplace.
yes,
Let's talk about the market a little bit. How do you see it different today than you did years ago?
well, I think the electronic age has changed it quite a bit with your websites and things like that. But the business, it was pretty much standard size brick, some Normans and Romans, and
Now your standard size would be the 2 1/4 full 8-inch,
full 8-inch
3
brick.
and 5/8 bed,
Right.
and Roman would be your narrow
Yeah,
Norman,
inch
right?
and a half
11
by
5/8.
11 5/8, and then the Norman was 2 1/4 by 11 5/8 brick, and that was most of what was sold back in the early days, and that's evolved into a lot of different sizes today. You've got your utility brick, your utility closures, your 8 by 6, 4 by 16 brick, your 8/16s, 12 by 12s, 8 by 8s, a lot of sizes, so it gives the architect a lot of flexibility on designing a building, and there were cost savings to be had by going to the larger size units.
Well, if I'm going to go back memory lane with me, and I've been in business 25 years now myself, I was told that the guys loved laying Normans at the time because they could lay the Norman as fast as they lay a modular.
Yeah.
It's just that much longer.
Right.
But the manufacturers hated making the Normans or the Romans because the bananas and the chippage and breakage and all those things.
Yeah, but Norman size brick even today is still a pretty economical brick because you've got a brick and a half in that unit, so you're laying a half brick more, and the mason's only using that same motion to lay that as he would a standard modular brick.
Even the same motion tonging it, the tender, you know,
Right.
it's still tonging. A
Yeah.
lot more square footage as it goes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but the utilities came into play, and they're a pretty prominent item in the commercial work today. Schools, bigger buildings, where you've got mass walls and stuff, it makes a better dimension.
Well, my days at the plant, my recovery on utilities would be so much higher than Normans. Normans are just tough, and then if you wanted something straight wall, you know, utility can hold the weight, but depending how we set those, you know, or the stress of a Norman, even at handling, you know, you have to be careful of the ones that would bend or get a little banana shaped and those kind of
Right.
things. And the Masons hated the banana shaped ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Bowerston do a very good job on Normans.
they do.
I think they like making them. I think they have the proper raw materials to make them
Yeah, and they
come out
probably
good.
strew a little stiffer, and
Yeah.
yeah, they do a nice job.
You know, your raw materials affect a lot of that ability to make different size bricks. I mean, some clays just don't react well to it, where others you can go through it quite well.
And Belden's done a good job with it too. Belden's done a good job overall. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
oh yeah, they're an excellent company, and they've done well over the years. I've sold their brick a lot over the years. So when I first started the business, I was selling Belden brick. And
I was amazed how well. I always like a well blended wall.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want a bunch of brick clustered together and all those kind of things. And when I got to tour the Belden plants, realized that they take the brick off a package and then they repackage them again and blend them again together.
Yeah.
You know, which is an extra function that most companies don't do.
Yeah, they will sort and put their brick on pallets and then take it to their blending station to put them together afterwards. So you're sorting and then reblending, and they keep a pretty consistent color that way.
Now, you'd have seen in your timeline, I've seen a little bit of this, but not as much as you'd have had available, the coal firing versus sawdust versus gas.
Yeah.
What have you seen some changes with all that?
Well, when I first came into business, almost all the plants were coal-fired periodic kilns, either rectangle or beehives.
Most of them were back then. They were all
Yes.
coal-fired. Okay.
Yep. And then that started evolving into your tunnel kilns, a lot more efficient. Your handling was different because periodic kilns is all hand fed in there. You hand load them and stuff, and very labor intensive to do that, versus now you've got your big dinosaurs loading your cars and stuff, and the human hand doesn't hardly touch them.
So we're trying to match those today, like your Claycraft.
Yes.
Well, that was coal. That was up in Central Ohio area, right?
Right. They had 2 plants on site in
Upper
Columbus.
Sandusky or Sandusky area or something like that?
Well, Upper Sandusky was where they made their molded brick.
That's where the VI mills were.
That's where they made their Wyandotte sand molds. And
like the 96Rs or stuff like that, right?
No, this was like your Elms and Saruks and
Appleseed. No, that
was
Mansfield.
Richland.
Richland brick.
Yep.
Mansfield.
You had Cranbrooks and all that.
Cranbrooks, okay.
Yes, sir. Claycraft was very successful selling a lot of that molded brick in the Columbus market, both residentially and architecturally.
There were some neat colors.
Oh yeah, they had colors that it's very hard.
Greens and yellow greens and.
Oh yeah, the dark purples.
Purples, yes.
Oh yeah.
Mason Cosmetics will repeat those colors for you, though.
Yeah.
You're dead here first.
There you go. But no, Claycraft had that, and then they also had a plant at Sugar Creek, Ohio, which is on the site of Belden's plant number 3 now.
All right, I did not know that. Okay.
And up there, they made a lot of their smooth reds and a little more of their architectural type brick there. And then they had a plant at Shawnee where they did some of their glazing and stuff. They earlier had made iron spots as well as iron clay down there. So they had their plants there, and there's been many plants go by the wayside in the Ohio area.
Well, it's neat you brought up about that, which you talked about the iron already in the clay, because a lot of manufacturers were trying to put that iron in a mix or a fret in the body mix to try to get that to come out as a through the body iron spot, you know, versus sprinkled on top as it extruded.
Exactly.
So that's neat that was naturally done. I've only ever seen it fed. I've never seen it naturally.
Yeah. Well, it was a natural byproduct in the clay, and ended up making some awful nice brick, you know. I know at Iron Clay they shipped brick into Boston, Philadelphia, all through New York State, Chicago. Frank Lloyd Wright used some of the Iron Clay brick on some of his buildings. I know up in Chicago he liked the Romans for that, long look and so on.
He had his own look, yes, he did. There's houses everywhere.
Yep, and so, but
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but those plants, and then they've kind of all either went by the wayside or transferred into tunnel kilns and so on, because of, like, say, the efficiencies. And the older tunnel kilns aren't even near as efficient as the new plants today. you can build a tunnel kill today twice the size of an old one and use half the amount of fuel. So it has been able to keep brick as a pretty economical product.
Right.
And you look at brick masonry compared to the other products, and it's still a pretty efficient, cost-saving product to use.
It's amazing, isn't it, what they've
Yeah.
had to do? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost amazing on one hand, unfair on the other hand. Or the other products, wood and lumber and all that, can drive up so fast, and brick,
Yeah.
very slow moving as far as growth of price.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the other brick manufacturers that aren't around anymore. Give me some background of those.
You had, in Ohio, you had Ava, which was a red brick plant. You had Metal Brick, which was up in Worcester and Camp. You had Alliance Brick Company, Alliance Clay Products.
Sure, with Alliance.
You had Ohio Brick Company. You had Cleveland Builders Supply had a plant. You had Robertsville Brick.
Never heard of those.
You had Delaware Brick Company. You had Galena, which went out a few years back. Of course, Claycraft was no longer around. There was MacArthur Brick Company down in southeast Ohio. Natco Corporation they were based in Pittsburgh, but they had plants at East Canton where they made glazed tile. They had an East Palestine, Ohio plant that made glazed tile.
And that's where Bradkey was, and Natco.
Yeah. And then they had a plant at Diamond, Ohio, which was down
And
there.
General
Nelson.
Clay, did General Clay take over that plant later on?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
And they had a plant at Haydenville where they made salt glazed tile. And they had
That was Beheim Kilns in Haydenville, right?
yes,
I walked through those.
yes. And so there's been just, Miller Brick that made pavers and so on. There's been just so many of those plants that no longer, and you had Richland Shale.
Do you know what disappoints me the most is how well pavers have held up and how great they look as street pavers.
Oh, yeah.
And people, you can't drive fast on those roads.
Yeah.
You got to slow down. So what we do is we smooth them. We go and we pave them, make them nice and smooth, and then we got to put speed bumps on it because people are driving too fast.
Fast, yeah.
Blows my mind. I don't understand why we're wasting
Well, and
money.
a lot of those paving brick were made down in the southeast Ohio region, Nelsonville and so on, and there's just a lot of those little plants, and they called them furnaces back in those days. You had
That's right.
Union Furnace and all that, and most of those plants were making paving brick. And those things are really highly vitrified material, and they're hard as a rock. We've got Colonial Brick over in Indiana that are duplicating some of that today. And very dense brick, very low absorption, down to 1%.
I have an old historic house in downtown South Bend, and we put a hardscape, 700 square feet of Belgard and concrete pavers and a wall and everything in my front yard, but we took those pavers out. There's big, they say Nelsonville on them.
Yes, sir.
And I have those all around the back, sitting in a pile. My wife keeps saying, what are you going to do with them? I said, I don't know, but something. But
If you put them on eBay, they bring a lot of money.
Yeah, those are awesome.
They do. They're quite a collector's item today.
Yeah, I've actually started brick collecting.
Yeah. And there are some of those that were made that kind of like had a score in the middle and a kind of a star pattern and on the top of the brick. There's some of those were made down in that area, so there was a lot of that type of thing.
Let's go to politics a little bit. Are you happy with the election results?
I think what turned out is going to be very challenging for the industry in the next few years. It's a lot of unknowns, and just the way they want to treat industry and so on. What are they going to do with taxes and things like that? I think it's going to be quite interesting to see what really evolves out of that.
I have concerns. Of course, I was definitely a McCain-Palin, Palin person myself. More Palin brought me back. I ended up liking McCain out of this whole process more than I did before, because he would not have been my first choice.
Yeah.
But I laugh at the whole election process where, Biden and Obama were like, they weren't there. McCain and all of them were there. The only one who wasn't there at Washington was Palin.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like everybody has off hands. Bush did it all. Where were you guys when Bush was doing all this stuff to us? So it cracks me up. I'm a little worried. I want to get behind Obama now, President-elect Obama, and try to support him the best I can. I do have a lot of concerns. We have Rick and I have several small companies. You know, not several, a few small companies, but all of them just trying to struggle. And today we overlap them, where I use the same secretary, I use the same accounting, bookkeeping person, all that kind of stuff, because I can't afford to have individual ones in each of the companies. They can't support them. You know, Bob, it's, doing the video today, he's our operations manager of one company. He runs the other computer business. I mean, he's, spread himself thin over 3 companies too, so all our people have done that.
Well, it's going to be very challenging for the next few years to just see what turns out. Hopefully they won't get too crazy with the things like 401ks and things like that, because I think that could really hurt a lot of people when they're heading toward their retirement years. So we'll see, but I just worry about the overtaxation that they keep talking about. Oh, you got to pay more taxes, and you look at California with all the taxes, and they're still broke.
We got to bail them out. California ain't going to make it.
And then you got New York City going through the same routine. Someplace you have to kind of put the brakes on.
Yeah,
and
I think so. I think so. Do you know what's sad today is we can't move without being taxed. If you want to get a cup of coffee, if you want to get gas in your car, you want to buy a car, everywhere you move, you get taxed. I mean,
well, again, and then these guys holler about the oil companies and all their profits. The government's making more profit off that gallon of gasoline than the oil company does with their taxes.
That is true. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's like 76 cents. I read on a pump once that it was how much it was for tax again.
Oh yeah, it's
going to be way more than that now. But I mean, back then, you're right.
But they're reaping more money in their taxes off that gasoline than that oil company's making in profit.
I'm glad you brought that up. What do you think happened that we went from $4? We're $4 and now we're less than $2. What happened there?
Well, your world market shrunk down, and I think most of that increase came by speculators looking for increased use of gasoline and creating a shortage. And now that things have slowed down, that shortage isn't there. I mean, you've got more abundant gasoline. Even if the OPEC countries cut their production, we're still going to be sitting in a surplus because everybody's watching how much they drive. They're being a little more careful combining their trips.
Yeah, it's all of us.
I think, and but it's dropped back down quite dramatically in the last couple months, and it's, I think, due to this recession that everybody was preaching. They talked everybody into it.
You know what? We're a small company. We can't make a huge amount of difference, but the Suburban I drive right now takes E85. And every chance I get not to send any money overseas, the oil companies, I don't do it. I mean, I won't buy Citgo gas. Won't do it at all. Forget about it. I'll drive right by and drive for miles to find another gas station, which I don't normally have to, but just won't do it. So trying to be as smart as we can just to help what little bit we can.
Sure. Oh, yeah. But no, it's going to be again, challenging few years to get through. We'll work through it. I mean, we're the Americans,
We are now. How about this now? How about someone new coming into the brick industry? What advice would you give them today?
I might say they're crazy. No, I think it's a great industry. It's a very viable part of the building business. You look at your best buildings; they're made out of clay masonry.
Yeah.
And so I think there's always going to be a market there. I think it's a challenging market. I think it's very interesting because, especially on your commercial buildings, you're working with that architect to help him create a structure and get a particular look. And and that's very rewarding to me, and has been over the years. I've been fortunate in selling some very nice projects over the years that you kind of got your little badge there,
As brick salesmen, we know every brick job we ever sold, don't we?
Yeah.
If I sold drywall, I wouldn't go down the street and say, "Hey, I sold the drywall in that building." It just doesn't seem the same.
I remember selling brick on a bank job in Columbus. It was the first sand mold brick job to be sold out of Belden's Plant 8 back in 1968, I believe they opened that plant. So,
Nice.
Didn't even have a color number on the brick yet. It was just it was pink sand mold.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, and then sold the Natco 12 by 12 mahogany 12 squares on the Ohio Historical Society building, which was the first 12 square job in the country.
That is so neat.
Yeah. So there's been some very rewarding type jobs.
Was that your most memorable job? Is the 12 by 12 or 11 5/8 job? Is that?
Yeah, one of them. I think. I think the Cincinnati Convention Center was one in the fact that it was rather complicated. It was an 8 square job, but it ended up having 62 different sizes or colors of brick on that project. It went down to a 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square with a 3-inch bed depth, up to the 7 5/8, 7 5/8 8 square, and then some of them were only 5 5/8 to work into the column structure. So there was all kinds of sizes and shapes on that thing. And there was radials and all kinds of stuff. So it was quite a challenging project, but worked out very well.
Yeah, it's funny. It's hard. It is hard just to pick one because you've done so many, and there've been so unique stories and some over time. I'd have trouble just saying I'm a part of one or two or whatever.
Yeah, you can't just pin it to one job. I mean, the biggest job I sold was actually in Indianapolis on the Hyatt Regency. There was about 1.75 million utilities on that thing.
Now, it seems like that I have in common with everybody because everybody remembers their million brick job.
Yeah. So in brick equivalents, that thing was about 3.5 to 4 million brick.
Awesome.
With the shapes and all that stuff. So.
Well, I tell you, Ron, you're one of the treats, Ron Lehman. I tell you, treats in the business that I can go on talking hours and hours with about the brick industry. But I want to thank you for being with us in the show today.
My pleasure.
Also have a little treat for you.
Okay.
We have a treat for we picked 4 people. You are one of 4 that got picked this year to be in the Brickman's Hall of Fame. And it's a little treat that we've done our interesting people that have made a difference in the brick industry today. And they have great stories, the stories that you saw and we shared today with you that Ron's got a lot more great ones that we haven't even talked about. But Ron, we've got a Brickman's Hall of Fame brick for you. This is for you. And
thank you
kindly. To hold and cherish. Just one more brick you need in your collection.
Yep.
And welcome to the Brickman's Hall of Fame.
Well, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. Thank you so much for watching the 4 inductees to the Brickman's Hall of Fame. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Congratulations to the 4 pillars of the Brickman's Hall of Fame and 4 true pillars in the brick industry today. Thanks, everybody.